Fire away saying.
Yeah, give thanks to life again, and a beautiful episode to forward.
Serious day. Today is a special show with some special guests right now here doing some great works. We have Dr. Tanisha Clark and the one O'Neill, musical extraordinaire. Some of you know him from the Nomads and some of you know him from JDC and the Brethren here. And we're going to discuss their book, What About Me? Dr. Clark O'Neill, what are you saying?
Yeah, good morning. Oh dear, internet land, social media land, TV land, every kind of land. Buenos dias, my Spanish people. And it's good to my Germans.
Morning, everyone.
All right. We want to get right into the thing, right? And before we get into the reading, just let the people know how you guys connected to do this project and create this great work with this book.
All right, so I'm gonna jump on it. All right, well, what has happened is Tanisha has a daughter and I have a daughter as well. We have based on universe, somewhere we were going to the pool at the same time. So our daughters met and we were speaking. So she was working on she was finishing up her doctorate at the time. The only thing she needed to do was some research. So I remember asking her questions about it, and she said, hey, she have to get up and get it done. She got it done, and we didn't really think too much of it. But then as time went by, I realized that, hey, when I saw her doing because I realized that she does these sessions, and I'm saying, wait, she does sessions, she talk to them, and she says, yes, she speaks to them and does, like sessions as to, helping people with different stuff. I'm like, well, I've always been reading because I kind of read for about say 3 years, pretty much. I've done a bunch of self-help books and, realized that they kind of helped with reading and journaling and, helping you to find yourself out. And then from that, we started to say, well, what if we bring a book up, where, we can at least start the conversation. Some people are kind of weird about therapy where them say, maybe we shouldn't be doing the therapy too, Whatever it is. So it's all right, tell you what, how about you just give a book out there so that you can do it in your own little time without anybody else at all, and then start it from there. And start a book series from there, because it's only one of the many books that are supposed to be coming up, because we're going to have anxiety coming out, we're going to have things about money, we're going to get deeper in the money, we're going to get deeper in other little areas, so it's just our experiences, that we've just said, all right, this is what we need to do, this is a good thing to the market. She's very, well, you ever talk to her, you're right. She loves her audience, and I love, the audience, so I think it just is the perfect, amalgamation. It's the perfect combination.
No, reality meds, and I'm feeling the energy already, right? First thing, not serious thing, fire. First topic I want to touch on is this whole idea that mental health is still, to this day, even though it's a, what do you call it, a conundrum, an oxymoron, right? Mental health is a hot topic, but it's still taboo in our community, right? And I just want you to touch on one of the things that I've heard many times is that if I get this money, if I get this item, if I purchase this, if I get this job, right? People believe that's it. That's just gonna clear the slate. Everything that has occurred in your life, everything that you're struggling with is done. You touch on this in the book. Please touch on this concept that people have, that by gaining material wealth, that will just heal all inner struggles.
All right, I'm gonna make she touch it and then me will touch it. Go on, Tanisha.
Okay, so to touch the financial piece of mental health, finances affect emotion, and it just happens that way. Domestic violence rates kind of go up. Mental health issues go up when you can't pay your bills on time. You kind of do a self-doubting thing. You do a self-destructive thing when your finances go down. So it kind of go hand in hand. Now, when your finances do get better, you tend to feel better about paying, but there's always that thing in the back of your mind that says, yes, the bills are getting paid, but what's next? Something else is not fixed. So it's yes, the finances help. Okay, your finances do help. We're not going to sugarcoat anything about that. Finances help to curb the stresses of paying financial woes in a way, but it doesn't get rid of the piece where, now that your finances are paid, now you're freed up to focus on you. Okay, so before that, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you look at your basic level of safety, water, food, shelter, if those things are altered, then you can't focus on you and your mental health issues. So when those things kind of become stable, now now you can focus on those things, but many people don't, because they are satisfied with the bare minimum of stability, which is the first level Maslow's hierarchy of needs: water, shelter, safety, security. So, and then we forget about everything else that you were going through, stress, maybe panic attacks, maybe racing thoughts, maybe increased levels of anxiety, worrying about the future, worrying about, changing something in your past that you can't necessarily change. So the self-destructive thinking, right? Because it doesn't, just because your finances are stable, become stable or stable at this time, does not mean a year or two from now that they don't become unstable. So now we're back in the same mindset and the same thinking because it was never solved when your finances were stable.
At the time there. So for me, what happened is, you see, and it's a great point. We sit down with Chris Blackwood, see, because we have a show to do for you, man. We jump flying at Jamaica because I'm flying me essentially, right? But some works, and we're talking about a particular track because I love the track, and I was sitting on reasoning with him, and I asked some questions, I start questioning. I say, Chris, you have all these millions, like Chris has millions of dollars. I mean, they're talking about over 300 million. You're talking about, like, it's levels where there's really nothing else really and truly. I mean, you're flying, first class. I'm rolling with Chris, and Chris is being driven around, and for me, if you get a haircut, somebody come and just cut him here. So you're seeing the wealth, and I'm saying, Chris is supposed to be all right, and everything's supposed to be fine. He says, what do you mean that? No, I've got issues like everyone else. That's what you mean, you have issues. Him say, yes, I mean, just the same way, I see you're on the road with me. You've seen how many things I've had to deal with, I mean, in this entire time. Only it's the same all across the board. And he like, just get some more money, I can just afford more things, but I still have more problems just like anyone else. And I was like, all right, forget it. Forget it. You still have to, work that out. So that was the idea.
Interestingly, when it comes to this, mental health is a thing that most people are in denial of. How when we mentioned in the book, but we really wanted to be want to expound on this particular piece. Like, how does one really truly identify having some form of mental health crisis in order to address it? What's the first steps that you think someone should use to say, okay, there's something wrong with my mental health stability, and it's time for me now to go and seek out some form of help towards this whole mental health crisis that's going on in my life?
So I'm gonna take that piece. So you have unconscious and conscious triggers, right? Unconscious is what everybody else around you is saying and telling you that you're doing and saying that's not coinciding with your desires and what you want to do. So, for instance, you're saying that you want to be an entrepreneur. You're saying you want to have your own business. You're saying you want to do X, Y, and Z, but your everything else around you is crumbling. And people are telling you that, okay, maybe you need to refocus and stop for a second and see why everything around you is crumbling. Meaning you're not getting along with your spouse or ex-spouse. Children dislike you. People generally don't like being around you. People generally run from you when you're around. Or another person's watching you have panic attacks a couple times a week, cry in spells, waking up in the middle of the night and don't know why. Maybe your spouse is telling you this, but you're not really listening to what they're saying. So that's, those things can be unconscious. Conscious could be you actually identifying and accepting that, if you're having panic attacks, okay, they're becoming too frequent to the point where I can't work, I can't think, I can't even pick up my child without having some type of fear of doom. So that's more conscious. So it depends on if unconscious and conscious kind of triggers going on here. So, depending on what the trigger is, that's what's going to tell you whether or not something needs to change, or that there's a problem or issue at hand that you can't function to your optimal level and something needs to change. So I hope that kind of sums up a little bit.
And we can add to it. I mean, if I feel like something out, like for example, if you notice you gain weight, just out of the blues, why are you gaining weight? Because you're supposed to be within a certain range. If you notice that you're either gaining weight or you're losing weight very, very quickly, and something wrong, your skin are discolor, you know what I mean? Like you're starting to get a lot of pimples, but then you realize that these were things. When you start to get a lot of acne and them little things that, it is seeming stress. You might be getting a back pain, or you might be getting, in other words, little things are happening to you. Yeah, I said, wait, but well, you've been brushing it off. But these are actually things that have been there. And if you're, the man, them are Jamaican, so I go on when in Jamaican, I say, wait, a madman that. But you never realize that it really was. It's just now when I come into the US and talking with Dr. Clark and researching stuff and realize, wait, it's people are mentally unstable. And we have had many mentally unstable moments in Jamaica, you know what I mean? But it's just, we never realized that that's exactly what it was. And I said, why you're mad? You're like you're mad or you're crazy or whatever it may be. So these were things, so hey, you know what I mean?
Other triggers, one of the basic, triggers is insomnia or hypersomnia, sleeping too little or too much. You're supposed to get anywhere from 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and you're getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night and waking up suddenly and can't go back to sleep. Or you're oversleeping, you're getting 9 to 12 hours of sleep and not feeling rested. That's right. So all those things there, those are all triggers, those are all triggers. Or you're talking around in circles and nothing is making sense. Or if you smoking marijuana, that was a recreational thing, but all of a sudden you start to smoke 2, 3, 4 times a day to handle stress, and it becomes an avoidance factor, meaning you're there, but you're not mentally there. You're outside smoking without being inside with your family. That's a problem as well. I use marijuana because everybody thinks marijuana is solve all, end all solution to all your problems. And really, it can be used as an avoidance factor, because when people smoke, whether it's cigarettes or marijuana, it takes you away from the stressor. Okay, so if you're taking 15 smoke breaks a day at work, how are you working? You guys are laughing, and I'm hearing this. If you're with your male friends more than you're at home, what about home is distasteful? Why are you avoiding it? So, and I just use that. Well, I'm not picking on guys. I really am not. And women do it too. I see a lot more numbers of women, removing themselves to go have a cigarette or smoke too. So it's not, or hey, I'm going to go out with my friends a couple times a week if you're a woman, and I really don't want to rush and go home. Why? What's the problem? That's well, there you go. But it's, the avoidance is a very, very, it can be unconscious in the beginning. Avoidance. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm glad you brought that point up, because as a former herbalist, right, I used to burn herb a lot. A lot, right? And I can relate to that. During the time I was doing it, it was a denial in the sense that, one, whether I'm relaxing, trying to get someone, I made all these excuses. I'm telling me personally, I want the next person wants to say. I could say I made all these excuses, right? But for a lot of people, yes, it's a form of self-medication, but it is just avoiding reality and avoiding, like taking a break. How many breaks from life can you take in one day? Then it really sums up what you're saying, and like for me as a person, it's just, in retrospect, I took a a lot of breaks. I was taking a lot of breaks during it. So but there's just this, I'm really glad you use the term avoidance, right? And there's a lot of that going on, and people should use that term more when they're speaking about mental health, right? It's a simple term that people can relate to. A lot of people are just avoiding life and avoiding the realities of life, avoiding responsibilities, and it compounds and gets even worse. Use the family, for instance. If you're constantly avoiding your family, avoiding your spouse, avoiding your children, eventually this is just going to get even worse, because that relationship is going to be tarnished. And when you do going around them, it's not going to be a vibe, and it's just going to continue. So I just like that word, avoid. More people need to use that word, avoidance.
And a question that come out from it's also in the book too, and really want to expound upon this part, especially like I feel like this I go really capture a whole heap of people. Because majority of people see getting help as a weakness. And my love, I want to clarify, say seeking help is actually a strength. That's a whole different perspective from the streets. And I've been in the streets and see what the streets really have to offer. And that's a total weakness when it comes to majority of people who suffer from mental health. So how we actually get the average individual to understand, say, yo, I have a problem right now. How this is actually a strength for me trying to better this problem, identify the problem, so we can move forward with our life. Or we get the average person to understand that particular concept.
All right. Well, how we going to understand that? Well, all right. I was able to read a thing one particular time, and it said how you deal with anything at all is, or any emotion, any action is start, stop, change. So anything at all, you got to start something, you can stop it, and you can change it. That's the ultimate of control. So in order to get control, I have to be able to start it, I have to be able to stop it, and I have to be able to change it. So as you go along, how you get people to get on this is, yes, it's always a problem, just like anything else. Anything else at all that you're dealing with in life, you're gonna have to first identify what the problem is. So when you fix something, you don't know what you fix. Government said they're gonna fix, or anybody else gonna fix something. We're going to fix the crime problem, but we're going to tackle. So let's start. But we have to say, okay, so what is the problem? You know what I mean? That's always gonna be the first thing. So that's for sure. You always want to identify, and yes, seeking help is actually a form of strength because there's always strength in numbers. That's what I mean. Everybody work with a team. If you think about the real estate guy, come do some real estate too. You know what I mean? The investor real estate guys, teams that win. You understand? You have a man who is a property manager, you have a man who is an accountant, you have a man who is a lawyer, you have a man who is a CPA, you have a man who is the money with the money, you have a man with the finance. It's a team that work. You know, just a one person, you know, going in solitude, and you know what I mean? Sure, them give you that, say, you know, you're going in solitude and find whatever else it is, but you really do want to get, you know, somebody else's perspective and opinions on them look like a thing there, because it gives you other ways and means. So yes, you should be seeking help. You should be seeking somebody else who you can, you know, reason with and talk to. And that's why I say the book itself, if you notice, it built for just 5 minutes of reading and 5 minutes of journaling, because you also, as much as the intake, you still need to put out as well. You understand? You have to push it out. That's really what the journaling is really for. It's really so you can write out, so you can take out some of the things out of your head. Because you know, you may say, why I'm all about things, you know, Jamaican say, I'm all about things in my head, you know, all about things that go through my head right now, but I never know. My head dark. You understand? So, you know, but and it is as we come here, realize, I said, no, you have to take them things out of your head, Papa. We get mad. So realize why people actually are, you know, getting scared at different times. So yes, you need help from that, like a retrospect. So if you even start by even say writing, that is even helping. You understand that if you even start to say, you know, I'm link Jane, and I'm ask Jane a question in a probably, I don't know, in a jargon or gypsy. So Jane, if you have a man and you might do this or whatever else, what you think you would have to do? You know, and you hear from Jane, and so Jane think, and you hear what John think, and you ask yourself what you think, and you compare ideas. So yes, strength is always going to be numbers, you know, but people are saying, well, no, them think they work on your thing yourself, because, you know, but what if you're not strong enough at that time? You know what I mean? What if you're not, you know, because when you used to go to battle and you go war, if the soldier wounded, the next man go cover for him, man. You see me I come from, if it's there now, and if you look even on SWAT and the Marines and everybody else, look how them fight. Look exactly how them fight, and fight as a unit and as a team. If you're not fight as a team, you're gonna lose. It's just as simple and as plain as that, and it applies to everything in life, whether it is mental health, whether it is whatever else it is a team. You understand? Teamwork made a dream work.
Dr. Clark, I have a question to counter this real quick, right? I understand the teamwork. I work in Philadelphia public schools, and what I've noticed is that unfortunately a lot of people are alone and isolated, and also a lot of people live in denial, right? So can you touch on, like, what would be a sign of denial, right? And also, like, for those who don't have access to people, it's just the reality of our environment. I feel you're fortunate to have someone to have a reasonable conversation with, or even to have someone that you can confide in. But like, what advice would you give for those who are just lonely and isolated and don't have any support system? And also touch on denial when you're done.
Okay, so it's like I said, there's unconscious and conscious yet again, knowledge of that, a lack of support system. There's some people that have big families, but they don't feel supported by anybody in their family. There's some people that are literally by themselves and or that have children that feel like they feel lonely and don't know why. Okay. And it really comes from them not paying attention to their needs, their wants, and their desires yet again, knowing what you need and what you want as far as what's going to make you happy will better determine how your support system is going to be. So how you determine how you're going to identify whether or not you are happy first. Okay. And a person can come to terms with that sometimes by themselves, or another person will identify certain things in them. So if you can't identify whether or not you're first even happy with your current situation, and somebody's telling you, but you can't break through, certain things will not necessarily go their way. Okay. So it's a very hard thing for them to identify their supports, or how they feel supported, because you have to identify whether or not you're happy with your current situation, the people that are around you first. So it's yet again, what about you is the question that we're going to bring it back to again, is to identify, okay, are you happy? Are you happy with your current situation? Who do you find out as your supports? So a lot of times people don't even identify that until, for instance, when they get into an assessment with me and I ask them who are their social supports, and I break down what social support means, and they start to think that they don't have anybody. They don't feel like they have anybody. So a lot of times they really don't know until they figure out whether or not they're happy with their current situation, or their triggers, and their determination as to whether or not they need to get help or not. So it doesn't even start with me with the support. It starts with identifying whether or not you're happy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
Yeah, it's a
all
very
right.
complex thing to identify, but
Ah,
most people don't even pay attention to their social supports until they get into their assessment or their evaluation phase. They identify whether or not they're happy about their current situation, or whether or not they're happy with the people around them, or if they notice they're getting into a lot of arguments with a lot of people that they are around that are close to them. They know that something, they may have identified something is wrong at that point, because they're not happy with the people that are around them.
Don't they have lines as well for people that they can call?
They do have lines, but first you got to identify whether or not you're happy with your current situation first. Does that make sense? And the people that are around you. And then there are lines that you can call, but the loneliness factor doesn't always come into play until later on. Now, sometimes they'll identify that they are lonely in the beginning, but they don't know why. They don't know why they feel lonely. You can be alone, but being lonely is two different things. Okay.
Right.
So
And
it's a process that has to take place first.
all right. And I wanted you to touch on this idea of being selfish to improve your mental health.
Okay, so it's basically, we're not taught to be selfish, especially in African American communities or people of color communities. We're not taught to be like that. We're taught to lift each other up. We're taught to be responsible for each other. And in being responsible for each other, it takes a lot of energy away from focusing on you. Okay, so when one of us is down, I know I've been taught that all of us is down, you know, but should it be that way? You know, we should care. We should be sympathetic. We should be sometimes empathetic, depending on the situation and how it affects the entire community. But should I be so empathetic that I give money to every person that comes to my door. I hate to put it back to the finances thing, but I mean, should I be that empathetic? If I do have it, should I feel that guilty to the point where I feel like I have to give you some of it? Or, you know, should I feel that guilty that I have to give you my energy to listen? You know, even though listening is my job, but it drains you. It does drain you. So it brings you down. Now you have to figure out how to pick yourself up because now somebody else's negative energy is upon you. So this idea of being selfish, if you're mentally, you feel like something is wrong, something is unstable, and that you need to focus on you to make it better. You know, whether that might be taking some time away from work or, you know, kind of having a breakfast by yourself without having family around, or, you know, going to the park and watching the ducks swim in the pond by yourself, you know, to kind of mentally have some clarity. It's some things that you would have to do in order to be able to help other people with their situation. Now, I'm not saying don't help anybody. That's not part of being a human being. It's not to help anybody. No. But if things are unstable for you, then it's probably time that you become selfish. For instance, I'll put myself in it. I was in a previous relationship where I literally went months at a time without, you know, getting something simple as my hair done, or something as simple as, you know, not eating enough vegetables or not taking enough water in, trying to maneuver bills around, you know, trying to manage that type of thing. And it kind of, I lost myself. And I'm also in the helping field. So I'm helping my clients 8 hours a day. I get home and I have to manage, you know, finances too, and how to pay things. And I just completely lost myself for a period of time. You know, there was some weight gain. There was some loss of sleep. There was a feeling of worry that I had never had that before, that things won't get better. So I had to really become very selfish around that time and started, you know, taking walks for myself, started paying attention to my needs and starting getting things done for myself. And if certain things fell to the wayside in that process, that's what had to happen in order to lift myself back up and in order to be, you know, a good parent. So I had to steal some of that time from myself. And I even had to take off work a time or two to do that. So it's the selfishness helps make you better to be able to help others as well.
You have to charge the battery, you know what I mean? Because I say if the battery run down, you know, seeing, you know, I mean, I use it as a thing where people can understand in layman terms, you know, if your own person has run down, then you have to go charge it first because it's of no use to the entire fold. You see what I mean? It's an entire plan itself. If you're not in the strongest mode, if you're not at 100%, and everything is going to perform at subpar, it's just logically. It's where I come from. So, you know, that's all, you know, it's basically, you know, I mean, that's why I think of it as well too, you know, so that's why you have to kind of go inside and say, you know, I'm just worried about me right now because I'm obnoxious, because I start get shot with the kids, then you start get shot with the next person, you start get shot with everybody, you know, everything start turning out terrible because you're already unseated, you know what I mean? And just a weight gain, you start thinking about different kind of, you know, notions. So, hey.
Or weight loss.
Mm-hmm. Or even weight loss. You know,
and is that interesting? Is that this an interesting point to lead to a build up a question of what I ask next, you know, like, but both are separately, like at the same question, but we know it have a bit of a spin-off based on the careerism, right? So Tony generally in a feel where it comes with people pleasing in a sense, because I gotta tell you why I say that. So I said Dr. Clark now. So you're not a spot where the therapist, everybody wonder about the therapist, like how does a therapist keep stable? So there's preconceived notion of the therapist. So it comes with people pleasing in a sense to an extent where everybody have a preconceived notion and you have to make sure say you live up to that preconceived notion even without trying at a particular point. How you navigate between like maintaining your persona and what people think of you in that space. And then O'Neal know, we know the man has a different type of talented man now. Always under the spotlight at one particular time, so they're on the move, going from different places to places. You have a particular talent where people judge you from that particular talent right off the bat. So you have to come good, make sure so you're always prepared. So how, from knowing say to have that particular career where have some form of people pleasing, how to navigate between the people pleasing and keeping that mental stability within yourself based on those preconceived notions that people have of it?
First, I am go first. All right, so you're right. People pleasing, yes. All right, for starters, let me get a story. 2010, or was it 2011? No, it's 2011. We were on tour in Germany, and it was the same year that my baby mother get pregnant. So I have to leave. Imagine that I actually have to leave by her side for at least 3 months. In other words, I'm not going to be able to see the whole of that part. I'm going to be there for that part, right? And if we hadn't had a cancellation, a show, because, and the only reason we had that cancellation was simply because we overstayed our time in Germany. And so we had to go back to Jamaica to get a Schengen visa to come back out into Germany, but it just never worked out. And that was the time when my daughter was born. In other words, I would have missed that particular moment, that particular pregnancy. The toll that it took, because I wonder, all right, is your child all right? Is everything all right? Is everything cool? But night after night, whenever it is a show time, I have to jump on stage and put on the show. Because as Ronnie Williams said, the show must go on, no matter what you do. The show have to go on. Somebody could have died, the show has to go on. So, I get where you're coming from with it, and that's, it's a way of, I've always had to try to separate, both modes, some way, somehow, as a youth born up in the ghetto. And first and foremost, I had to live two lives anyways, because we're born in the ghetto, number one, but we started to at age 8 and 9, when my drama teacher, Avenia Paul at the time, was taking me around to see, I would perform for the Prime Minister and those people. I don't know if he's not from Falk and things, so now I have to pretend like I know if he's not. Pretend. So it's just, and then I didn't understand these things again until we get old and realize, why you go through some things and look at you. I don't understand how you maneuver it, at age 8 or 9. But here's the thought that went behind that. If I didn't do it, we wouldn't have eaten. So I had to do it because now it become life or death. It's where I come from, which is a lot of pressure for a little youth, because you have to imagine, say, if I make that money today, if I make that 5 bills tonight, I'm not going to school for the next week. So, work that out, So man, you go through it as time go by. The most I can do is, I know that I've always been a person who write a lot, And so a lot of things have come out in the music, even a lot of the songs I've written. Every single time I would write exactly what I'm feeling in the music. And I think musicians do that a lot by writing into the, writing out the pain essentially. You have to write out. After a certain time, I couldn't sing certain songs because I write the pain so much that no more pain left. No more pain left, right, bro. No more pain. So sometimes when I see the song them and when I see the hard rock songs, I can't relate to it because I write out the pain. I realize that that's what it really is for, So it's just about that, And you have the times as well to where, everybody want to talk to you, you want to go home. You remember, say your daughter said, boy, she said, remember daddy say, remember that little thing, but you have to sit down and take one picture. So, boy, it does weigh its toll upon you, but you have to just, you have to find a way, of balancing it. Because there were times where I had to start to balance it and realize, all right, O'Neal, yes, and you're giving, yes, you can give this amount to this, but make sure that you're giving it as well to this section, because both of them going to affect each other. You want to be happy because you're happy when you go on the stage and perform, but your family also need to be happy. You need to be happy in that setting as well, because that's what you're going home to. Mm-hmm. So you're taking it from this to feed this, and you're taking it from this to feed this. Mm-hmm. So the both of them must coexist. Some way, somehow, they have to coexist, just like anything else in the universe.
Yeah. So I've been asked that frequently throughout my career. And that's, now I'm going into about 12 years of doing this in the mental health field. So the way that I kind of maintain mental stability is, of course, using my other colleagues. When I have an issue or when I have a client that I don't know how to help, that their situation is so convoluted and so complicated that I refer out to my other colleagues. And I also make sure to take mental health days. So, about 10 years ago, mental health day was not very, it wasn't looked upon nicely, I should say. That you're a worker and it's what you get do for a living and you have to take a mental health day. So I took mine. If I needed some time off, or if I felt tired, or I felt like my energy level wasn't there and I couldn't give no more than I could give, I would call my supervisor and take off. And I would do nothing. I didn't care whether or not things were, notation was late. I didn't care whether or not, the team needed me at the time. I didn't care about any of those things because I literally had nothing left to give at that point, and we're talking about, I used to work anywhere from about 10 to 11 hours a day, 5 days a week. Okay. So, and we're not talking about time and a half. We're talking about unpaid extra time that has nothing to do with the hours that you're directly seeing people. Okay. So I might see people face to face 6 or 7 hours, but I'm working their cases, those other 4 to 5 hours. And no, you don't get paid for that. So it was, I just used to take days for myself where I did nothing but attend to myself. And I've worked in intensive outpatient settings. I've worked in the community setting. I used to go to people's houses. I've worked in hospital settings. I've coordinated, when it comes to IEP referrals, I've coordinated, plans with people, to help their children get on the path or to get them accommodations. You name it, I've done it when it comes to mental health mostly, except certain and more intensive inpatient type stuff. But I definitely have done a lot of direct care, and it's very draining. But I've taken days. I've just taken days, or I made sure I work out in the morning before I go to work. I might get up at 4 a.m. and run, walk, any type of extensive exercises 3 to 4 times a week. That and I have had consequences to my work. I have a disability, but I'm not disabled. That's different. So I have to attend to that. So when my physical ailments became worse over time, I had to scale back on other people's needs and the employer's needs and have to focus on myself. Because yes, I have the knowledge and to know what to do next for other people, but I had to really, go into private practice to be able to take care of myself, to make myself more healthier for other people. So it's being able to be selfish and say no more.
My time.
It's my time. And some employers didn't like that. They didn't like being told that it's your time, because it's, I started to learn my rights at that point. That was my other mental health that helped me stable things out. I learned my rights. I learned my rights as a worker. A lot of people don't know their rights. A lot of people, they don't know that they have certain acts, such as the Disability Act, that goes for them, especially if they've been on in a job for a year. So it's, once I knew my rights, and no one could threaten me or tell me those snarky comments anymore, or bulldoze me. Nobody could do that if you know your rights and you know what you stand for.
O'Neal, I want to touch back, right? As a man that grew up in the garrison.
Yeah. No comparison.
Poverty's role in mental health. It seems like the amount of stress that you're under for basic survival, the responsibilities little children have to contribute to the family for survival, exposure to higher levels of dysfunction and violence. So like, what advice as a person, and you're in a fortunate situation that you had a talent that could be used to remove you from there, but what advice would you give for those who live in there to kind of balance out the mental health and the stress?
Geez, a good, great point. All right, I'm be very honest with you. The Garrison, yes, the Garrison rough, and I've still been following through because I'm still follow through on Jamaica and different spots. Reading is very important, and I'm trying to keep it away from us because I realize that that's the only way that we really and truly going. It's one of the biggest methods of moving past. I remember that as a personnel, actually, my drama teacher then, Avenia Powell, she told me, O'Neill, one thing I need to learn is I need to be able to read very well. She said, yeah, you have the talent and you have them various things there, but you need to be reading, I need to be catching up on, what is going on and putting your mind in a certain place. Because she told me from morning that this is one gonna be a way, really and truly. Yeah, you have the talent, but talent can go any day of the week. So make sure that you are a reader, because readers are leaders. She used to give me that. So she used to give me the Gleaner to read and the Observer, right, while at school. And so I would read, the Gleaner and the Observer, and then I never like it at first. And then she says, you know what? She said, all right, give me something where you like to read. I'm used to read the Star. Some used to just read the Star with about mistakes every now and again. A couple mistakes and a typo. But what it did was it kept expounding the mind, and so it get me very, very curious of doing other little pieces of the motion. But why the Garrison? If you're not a talent, honestly, you have to try something education-wise. It also is recommended that you find other friends who are in a different environment to see them can complement you. That's always I'm going to suggest that you do. Because I had to do that too. She showed me about association, show me two things. She showed me the reading and show me association. So O'Neill, who you associate with will make the difference as to whatever it's. I used to have a what you call now, geez, a number, a survey, a research I'm doing in my head, and I said, and it's tough, but it's not verified, but it's just from experience. I said that out of every 10 youth that's seen at the ghetto, only one going to make it up. 4 are going to be very close, but them not going to make it. 5 probably are dead. It's rough, but it's just something I lived through for a certain period of time and lived to see it come through and saw it going as it went along. You understand? One are going to make it out. So, how you be the one day is now going to be the biggest piece of the puzzle. Now youths are trying more and more to do more things. So I come from, they might try more at different pieces of the puzzle, like, they might try to do more of the talent and more of, various means of trying to get out of the Garrison itself. One of the things they don't give us very well in Jamaica is entrepreneurship as well too. And I feel like if them give you a little bit more entrepreneurship, and if we ourselves try to understand entrepreneurship some more, then maybe, we can do a little bit more. Like right now, I'm really complimenting the youths in Jamaica on getting very active and proactive with social media, because I noticed that a lot of them doing the vlogs. I'm saying, oh, yes, them find out there's something different where them can try to find a way, because there are modes, after coming here and realize that there are ways that you can really take yourself out of it. But no one will show you that. I want to show you,
Going back to the same book now, when underline this particular part in the book, I really want to highlight, like, especially you say, genes allow for a transmission of vulnerability within families. And that is something like I feel like we don't explore that a lot, because we don't explore that a lot. We always hear about these diseases that run, genetical disease that run within the family, diabetes and all of these things. And we don't understand, say it's not really that it runs through the bloodstream, but it's just habits. So we take from the genes. Like grandma used to fry chicken every Sunday or 5 times a week. Now we eat fried chicken 5 times a week and we don't even understand it. So I really want to explore this concept of genes allowing for a transmission of vulnerability within the family. Like, how does genes play a particular role in some of the mental atrocities them we are seeing today? Because I feel like it's a very important point that.
So part of it is environment, and some of it can be genetic. So genetic meaning being predisposed, have a predisposition to mental health issues. If a person, parents had schizophrenia or some type of severe mental health issues, to include psychosis or major depression, they're more likely to experience some of the same issues that their parents have because genetics, right? And then you have environment. So part of that is being taught certain things, such as, like you said, how to prepare meals, what to eat and how often to eat, or how to think, how to reason, how to speak, how to communicate, how to put sentences together. Certain things, yes, can be mimicked based upon in the environmental situation, because if it's done so much, you're going to pick it up. Okay. Not you're going to pick it up. You're more likely to pick it up, I would say. So it just depends, that's that whole nature versus nurture thing, whether or not something is passed down versus something is learned. So when I'm considering the client or I'm evaluating the client, I take both, because both matters. Okay. Usually, if you can tell me, if a person says about 5 or 6 people have a particular mental health issue, that in the severity of those issues, then I can kind of understand how it affected them. Now, they may not have the same type of illness or disorder that their parents have or their family members have, but watching how the family reacted to those people with those illnesses in the family, and watching them how they perceived it, is 2 different things. So if your family didn't talk about it, or it wasn't something that was discussed, or you were just told that that person has special needs, or that person's just different, and nobody really broke it down to you why they're different, then you might mimic them, and you think that because they're different, this is why I'm mimicking them, or that is cool, or maybe you're embarrassed by it, or you put off by it. It can affect you later on in life, because nobody ever explained to you what was going on with that person to make them different, or why that person is shy. It could be your own mother. My mother, if you say your mother was shy and didn't speak as much and didn't talk as much, and you say, no, that's just her. And you come down the line, you found out later that they dealt with it. They were taking anxiety medicine, or they dealt with severe amounts of anxiety. Like, that's why they did it. And like, I thought I was shy because my mother was shy. No, there's more layers to that. So it just depends. I would take all that in consideration when I'm dealing with the person. I couldn't even say if it was more one than the other, nurture versus nature type thing. It's hard to say.
Get them balance out.
Yeah.
People are mad, when you say the family mad. It's the same family mad.
And I'm not sure if you have a next thing, but the last thing I wanted to bring up is toxic work environments. That's the next hot topic with the quiet. We spoke about quiet quitting usually, right? And I know different industries produce a different environment, but is there any way to generalize and look for some basic things in a toxic work environment, and what should people do if they're in that type of environment?
I'm started. Yeah. Well, all right. I've been in a couple of environments. Yeah, I've worked a couple of places, so I guess we can expound on it. Well, what I can say is, for starters, boy, coping mechanism. I've learned that sometimes it's better to avoid the toxicity as much as you possibly can, than trying to see if you can go forward, head into it. Here's why. Because, and this is just, hey, again, it just depends on how everybody works. If you're just coming to a school, like for example, I'm working at this particular school, they've already built up their network of how them communicate and them talk against each other, whatever else it is. They've been working at that for years, right? I'm working at just coming there now to socialize and be cool and just exchange regular dialogue and do whatever it is. They've been working at this for a long time. I've not been working at mine for any period of time. So of course, their notion is way stronger than the notion of Mega have, for the same reason that, taking it back again to the ghetto, why the ghetto have such an effect on people. Because the energy already there is already built. That's already built. That's already cycled in, that it's crab in a barrel. is that, hey, I'm me and not you. So that's what it is. So how I see it is a walk away. Once you start pick up like a excessive gossip, you need to start leave the environment. Once you start pick up, say, a man not really too in a really big game, can't tell you why. If you have, because of course you want to ask questions. All right, may I have an issue? Tell me something. Why we have an issue? If you're not making any sense, I'll tell you whatever it is, you may want move yourself to the side because that's a covert hostility. You understand? Because if you can't tell you, it means in a real, because I'm supposed to be able to tell you in that particular moment. So that's the idea of it. You know what I mean? Yes, you want to confront in the initial stage. Confronting meaning you want to ask the question. But if you're not getting back anything solid, start move to the next side. Me see up on one side, start walk to the next side, because it means that he can't explain himself at this point in time. And until he can do that in a best, you know what I mean, to try and mix anything at all, or you got gaslighting, you know what I mean? It is what it is, fire and gas, give a particular effect. It is what it is. You can't, there are just certain principles in life you can't really go around, you know what I mean? With the same way of rainfall and sunshine. It's just, you just have to think about it like that. So that's why I normally say, you know, that you that workplace, a work environment, you be the best you can, and you promote the best thing that you possibly can, because you know you have to shine the best way you can shine at the environment itself. But don't act like you want to be Superman and be tough and say, you know, I'm going to just come change because of whatever it is. Come on, years now people are saying we are trying to change politics and different things, and we still not change it. So it's obvious that that's just how it is. You know what I mean? You have to know to do it. You know, it's one step at a time and it's one notion at a time. Probably if you can give in a good word every now and again, that's good. But you know, don't try linger around and, you know, behave like you want. Just see if you can work on you. Work on you and you be the light, you know, and be the change for everybody else wants. That's my take on it, Doctor.
So toxic work environments. It depends on what's toxic about it, I would say. You know, is the toxic work environments that people are working long hours and falling out, or people are calling out on Mondays most of the time and then they don't want to be there? Or is it that there's a lot of micromanagement going on? Is it you're overloaded with work that you can't finish? Like, or is there a lot of gossip going on and there's people are being pitted against each other? So it depends on what's toxic about it. But if you can check off most of those things on that list and your job reflects that these things are toxic, then it might be sensible enough to identify whether or not you need to be there. Okay. So that, to me, that right there, if you check off maybe one or two things that could probably be changed, it all depends on how you want to go about changing them. So you may or may not have feel like you have an opportunity to leave at that time. Okay. Because of things that are going on in your life that just have to get paid. But if you feel like you don't need to leave, something needs to change. So either you're going to change or you can propose something does change in your environment. Okay. For me, when I was working, you know, pretty tough, you know, when I was for the state, or, you know, I felt like I had to address my office because due to my physical disability that I was dealing with. I was dealing with chronic pain between my neck and my shoulder and under my left shoulder blade. I was dealing with a lot of chronic pain. And I didn't know that it had anything to do with how my office equipment was not ergonomic. And it was not conducive to how I should be sitting, and that I should be moving while I'm working at times, or I should be sitting and standing sometimes, depending on how bad that pain was. And my pain came from sitting for too long periods of time. So it just, and I couldn't leave at that time because I had certain obligations I thought were necessary for me to stay. So I addressed it. I advocated for myself. I got the equipment changed in my office. They paid for it, and they're supposed to, pay for those things to help you work so that especially if you have a doctor's note. I learned, like I said, yet again, I learned my rights, when I felt like my office environment became toxic for me to work, not the people around. Because people think that it's about toxic work environments have a lot to do with people, with other people.
Gotcha.
And not all the time. Sometimes it's coming from the higher up down, and they don't know that you have any issues physically or mentally. And it's about you advocating for yourself, which is why you feel like you need to leave, and that this environment is no longer healthy for you to be in. So it's come from you identifying yet again, what are your needs? Are you addressing your needs so that you can work? Do you have a supervisor, a boss that supports you? And at the time I did have that support. Once I started speaking up and vocalizing, or maybe had to take a couple of days off because my chiropractor would literally take me off the schedule. She would write a prescription and take me complete clean off, depending on how bad my pain levels were. So it's about you advocating for yourself and being a little bit more selfish about what you need in that environment, or that you have to do light duty. You can't do all that work at that time, or you can't be there as often as you would like, or you can't do all that overtime like you would like to do. So it's just about focusing on, what your needs are and what they're going to be addressed. And if it is more to do with other people and gossip, then you have to address it. You can't take yourself away from that, because you can't always run. You can't run from that. You address the issues head on, or you call a meeting. It's going to be about, yet again, about what you desire to do to make your situation better. So you may not always have a chance to leave or be able to leave, or there are no other jobs in the market at that time that can be flexible like this one is. But you're going to have to pay attention to this, if you want to call it an irritation, or if you want to call it a problem situation or a conflict, you're going to have to bring light to it and solve it. So it's really about what you're going to do.
What the problem is and what you do.
What the problem is and what you're going to do.
Nice.
You're going to have to be active in solving your problem.
See, and I've never heard that perspective from the doc before. So why? And I said every time I talk with the doc, she she exposed some more. She deep. The doctor is very, very, very deep. deep. I've never heard that perspective. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
All right, you have a next question, or you good?
Yeah, me have one last question for close out the thing. So what about me? I feel like it's a classic and a simplified book where in other places they make it very complicated, right? So with that being said, I don't want the misconception thrown out there, because I know what people think. So I want it to be clarified. Like, can people use this book to avoid therapy, or if that's necessary, or because that's something that will come to a lot of people's mind. They will buy this book thinking that, okay, this can replace therapy, or if they need certain help, this can replace it. Is it just a starter, or is it something that can take the place of that if necessary? Just want that clarified for a lot of people who might have some misconceptions.
I'm going to jump out first and then make the doctor jump out. The book is not designed to replace therapy. You understand? Therapy is still needed, but the book is to start the conversation about your mental health. So you buy the book. For the 30 days, you go through it and you start identify with yourself what kind of problems you have. And when you find the problems then, and you find a couple of solutions, in that is going to be a therapy session where you say, no, all right, book a session with that doc, like doc right here, Dr. Tanisha Clark, or so if you go on Psychology Today, or in the other platforms, you get yourself a doctor, and you sit down and you're talking, you know what I mean? And as you go along, because you do also want another person's perspective. You do want somebody else with more knowledge who can say, oh, you know what, that is looking in without an unbiased opinion. Because I read that you're doing a therapy really give you unbiased opinion, somebody who is not emotionally invested in what you are in, because you know, they say, well, this will happen, whatever, and then come and give you a different perspective and say, wait, no, I never really look at it that way. Just now, where she pinpointed on, she went on the topic of toxicity. You understand where I come from? And we always think, and it's true, we think toxicity as people, but sometimes it can be the actual surrounding and the situation. So sometimes you will need that expounding of the mind. You see what I mean? So what about me is It's designed for a read, you know, if you're new to the topic of mental health and and if you're old as well, whichever way you want to call it, but whichever one it is, but you want to do something and start right here. So, but it's not the end all and be all. Just like anything at all, you're always growing. Trees always are growing, and the universe always are grow. So of course, you definitely want, get going. So that's my 2 cents. The doctor will now take over.
No, it is not a replacement for therapy. Absolutely not. It is a starter. And you can use it along with therapy and medication management if that's your preferred method. It's a workbook, essentially. You couldn't learn accounting without a book, or you couldn't learn social work without a book, or you couldn't learn law without some type of guide, without some type of book. So it's a book, it's a workbook, and it gets you thinking about some of the issues that you need to talk about and that you need to dig deep on. And therapy, and people use this term therapy very widely. So let me kind of break this down, okay? So psychotherapy, okay, it's done over a number of sessions. So 1 or 2 sessions, depending on the severity of the problem, does not solve the problem, okay? So it brings you, it gives light to an issue. It start to evaluate the issue, but you don't even start to put a plan together to solve until a couple sessions down the line. There is a change method that kind of goes into play with this. It's when you're looking at how change happens, sometimes change is not even conscious that you need to change yet. So once you bring it into, the consciousness of it or thinking about it, you go through stages or steps to change your situation. And a plan has to be developed before the change even happens. So that is therapy. That is therapy. That's how problem solving begins and ends. And you have to maintain it for a long period of time before it actually becomes part of your life. So there are steps to changing that take long periods of time. And that can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to 2 years. Okay. And you may not solve it in therapy. Okay. So let's just clear the playing field that therapy is the end all solution to everybody's problem. It is not. Okay. It is not. You bring light to a situation during therapy. You put a plan that starts the change process to the problem. And then you work that plan until it becomes part of your life, so that the problem no longer is a problem anymore. It's just an obstacle that's there that can kind of come and go, but now you have the know-all to kind of to deal with it and deal with the problems in itself and how to change those problems instead of seeing that as self-defeating. You might need therapy 3 or 4 times in your lifetime, if not more than that.
Describe how them go through a session.
How I break down a session. So I have an assessment process that happens. Well, no, let me back all the way up. Intake. I figure out why you're even coming to me. So I identify why you're coming to me. Have you ever did therapy before? A lot of intake questions. And then I go into their assessment. Their assessment it kind of covers all, them from the beginning, as a child all the way up until present day and age. And then we talk about the assessment might happen. It might take 2 to 3 days for me to assess them, 2 to 3 sessions. So, and in that I might do it in 1 hour. I might need 2 or 3 hours to do it. And then I develop a plan of treatment, a treatment plan. And sometimes the plan might take 2 or 3 sessions to do, because they're sometimes persons so confused, they don't even know what they need to work on to change. So, and then you have the actual treatment. Now that we have a plan, now we have the treatment that takes place, and that, off the bat, that could be 6 months in the beginning. And then we assess your progress on your steps or your objectives to change. And as you meet those objectives, there are other things that might come out in the open that you need to change now. So we got another 6 months. We got to work on these new objectives, okay? Until you feel finally confident that you can move on your own and solve these problems yourself, or solve any problem that comes into play. Okay, so it could be very tedious and seem very tedious in the beginning, that we're not getting nowhere, but you are, because you never addressed these issues to begin with. So I can't solve a 20-year problem in a few days. That's not something that can happen. Okay,
No,
I just
we really give thanks for that explanation, because you mentioned two parts in the process that are extremely important. Accountability, more than two parts, the patience and just the amount of work that needs to go in. I notice with this therapy thing, I know people going to therapy, but it seems like they're not getting the tools that they need to deal with the problem. So I think like that's the biggest little thing.
They want it now. I want it now. I want to fix it now. I want to make money now.
Fix me.
Yeah, no, reality meds,
Sorry, you hit a sore subject, so that's why I'm getting into this. No, you can't have it now because you hadn't had it in 20 years. What makes you think you're going to have it now? It's not going to happen. Stop it.
Reality meds, serious thing. Hey, we really give thanks for your time with this powerful message. Everyone listening, make sure you check out What About Me, your 30-day mental health awareness journal, courtesy of the one Dr. Clark and Mr. Maestro author extraordinaire, Mr. O'Neill. The link is in the description, so make sure you get it. Make sure you support it. We give thanks for everything that you've done, sharing the information. We hope one's listening benefit from it. And it was I learned a lot also, so I really benefit from it. And I appreciate the way that you broke down these concepts and giving clarification, because too many times mental health is a hot word, a hot topic, and no one's really delving into the realities of it more than anything, the works that's needed to get better, so we truly appreciate it, so as I said, everyone listening, link here is in the description to purchase the book. Make sure you support the thing. And I'm not sure if you guys want to say anything else.
Well, all I can say what it is, big up to everyone. Blessed up, by the way. Give thanks, for allowing us to come on the platform itself, because it's always a pleasure. I'm really hoping that this book will help, everyone over the world. More so, hey, why I'm writing for JA, do make her read it. Because I feel like we needed it. We need a book like this in Jamaica, really and truly. I hope that it get into schools, because a lot of things we were dealing with as kids where we never really quite, you got the guidance counselor, yes, but never know what really that go on. So a lot of that, is important, as well as too, I'm now go, sugarcoat it. Please make sure you leave a little review. Once I finish reading it, leave a review, because we want other people to hear about it as well. The plan of it is to assist people. So that's really and true what it is. The more people it helps, more benefit is, the better it is for everybody. So that's the idea of it. And Dr. Clark.
Yes, it's a good benefit to at least start the conversation of mental health with yourself in a private setting. If you're not comfortable with talking with other people, and it's just an outlet for change, really. It's an outlet to help change a situation that you've been dealing with for a while and you don't know how to change. So it gives you a way to start it.
There we go. And check out Dr. Clark on Psychology Today. She's on there. So find her. If you need a session, you can link up with her. And she will talk in a session. One of the best doctors you will talk to, because she just calm, spirit calm. You listen to her right now. I mean, not so much, but
Well, let me hear you say,